Okay, so I think that one of the least understood areas in financial planning is actually protection. Because most people assume financial planning mainly is about growing wealth, investments, pensions, and looking at those long-term returns, or trying to beat the market by 0.4% while simultaneously buying an £8 coffee every morning and feeling morally conflicted about it. But before you grow anything, you have to protect the structure beneath it. And if you clicked on this video, there's probably a part of you that already knows that. Maybe you started thinking, what would actually happen if I became ill? How long could I cover my bills? What would continue financially and what wouldn't? Because a lot of financial plans work perfectly well, as long as nothing interrupts the income, which is subtly concerning, I guess, given that humans are unfortunately not a subscription service with 99.9% uptime. People actually burn out, people get ill, and companies restructure. Life becomes a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes your brain simply decides, actually no, we're not going to open the laptop today. And this is where protection planning becomes less about products and more about, I guess, dependency. Because one of the most useful questions in financial planning is simply, if my income stopped tomorrow, what would continue financially? Not theoretically, but practically. Would rent or mortgage still be covered? How long would my savings last? Would someone else be financially affected? Would investments need to be touched early? At what point would pressure start to begin? Because a lot of people are not financially secure, they are financially uninterrupted. And those are not really the same thing. Someone can have a good salary, investments, a pension, ambitious financial goals, and still have a surprisingly fragile structure underneath it all, especially if fixed costs are high. There's a very little cash buffer. Nobody else could support the household financially, or the entire system depends on continuous employment and good health forever, which, to be fair, is quite an optimistic business model for life. And this is why protection planning matters. Technically, protection planning includes things like emergency funds, sick pay, income protection, critical illness cover, life insurance, employer benefits. But beneath all of those sits a much more important question. How resilient is this life if something changes? That's the actual planning question. It doesn't allude to how do I eliminate all risk, because that's not really realistic. The goal is not building a life where nothing ever goes wrong. The goal is building a structure that can tolerate a reality when reality is inevitably inconvenient. For example, an emergency fund creates time. Income protection creates cash flow. Life insurance protects dependence. And critical illness protects against major financial disruption during recovery. None of those things are particularly exciting. Nobody sits at dinner saying, you know what, I'm really passionate about income protection premiums. But they matter because resilience matters. And I actually think this is one of the biggest differences between financial plans that look good on paper and financial plans that hold together in real life, because growth only helps if the structure underneath it survives long enough. So useful exercise is to write down your essential monthly costs and then ask yourself, if my income stopped tomorrow, what would continue automatically? What would stop immediately? How many months could this life realistically continue? And where would the pressure begin first? Because those answers tell you a lot about the resilience of your current financial structure. And honestly, I think good financial planning is often less about building the most optimized financial life possible and more about building one that can survive being a human being.